On March 24, 1980, at approximately 8:15 in the morning, a lone hitchhiker was walking along Interstate 95 near Pekin Park Road in Jacksonville, Florida, when a shocking sight interrupted his journey. What he saw in that moment kick-started a series of chilling revelations that would haunt the state for years. Half hidden in a ditch, just 40 feet from the road, lay the lifeless body of a young woman. Startled and unnerved, he quickly called the police. Little did he know, this single phone call would unravel the dark truth behind a spring break gone horribly wrong. Jacksonville police quickly arrived at the scene and began their investigation. They cordoned off the area and meticulously searched the crime scene for evidence. However, their efforts were in vain. They found no blood, no weapon, and no telltale sign that a struggle had taken place. This lack of evidence indicated that the young woman had been killed elsewhere and then dumped in this isolated ditch. The young woman was partially clothed, with her upper body exposed. Her white hooded sweater had been pulled over her head, revealing a spring break t-shirt that was also found nearby. Her gold necklace and earrings were still on her body, glinting in the morning sun. The woman's appearance and clothing closely matched those of Carol Ann Barrett, an 18-year-old who had been kidnapped from her Daytona Beach Shores hotel just 36 hours prior. In an effort to locate her, Daytona Beach Shores police had issued a statewide alert, hoping someone might have seen or heard something that could lead to her whereabouts. Could this body really be Carol Ann Barrett's? The thought was chilling, but Jacksonville police couldn't ignore it. Without hesitation, they reached out to their counterparts in Daytona Beach Shores to inform them of the discovery. Daytona Beach Shores police, along with two of Carol's closest friends, Billy and Steve, traveled to Jacksonville to make the identification. They confirmed everyone's worst fears. The body found in the ditch was indeed Carol Ann Barrett's. On March 20th, 1980, Carol and 8 of her friends set off from Zanesville, Ohio, their hometown, on a spring break adventure to Daytona Beach Shores, Florida. The girls, Carol, Billy, Autumn, and Pam, piled into a Chevy Nova, while the boys, Andy, Carter, Joe, Christopher, and Steve, followed close behind in a Dodge station wagon. They drove all night, taking turns at the wheel and sharing the cost of gasoline. They couldn't wait to feel the warm sand between their toes, ride the roller coasters on the boardwalk, and soak up the Florida sunshine. Arriving in Daytona Beach Shores, they checked into the Treasure Island Inn, a popular oceanfront hotel. The beach was calling, and they wasted no time in heading straight for the waves. It was the start of what should have been a carefree week of fun, but fate had other plans. In the early hours of March 23rd, everything changed. After a day of surfing and relaxing, the group spent the evening of March 22nd, laughing and chatting over drinks in the girls' oceanfront room on the 6th floor. Around 2 a.m., Carol and Steve left to look around. As they walked towards the elevator, a man suddenly appeared, waving a gun and blocking their path. The attacker forced them back towards their room and demanded that they go inside. Steve, worried about what the intruder might do, said they didn't have a key to get in, but the gunman was insistent and pushed Steve towards the door. Terrified, Steve and Carol pounded on the door until one of their friends inside opened it. Entering the room, the gunman was surprised for a second to see so many people inside. However, recovering quickly, he ordered all 8 of them to line up against the wall. He then asked them to remove their clothes and toss them in a pile near the wall. Searching through their clothing, the gunman was able to recover about $200 from the group. Then, saying he needed a hostage to help him get away, he first chose Pam. But when Pam panicked and began crying uncontrollably, he changed his mind, muttering that she'd be too much trouble. So he picked Carol instead. Being calm and practical, Carol did what he told her to. She picked up her clothes from the pile and put them on. In the meantime, the gunman forced the rest of the group, still naked, onto the balcony and locked the sliding door. He ordered them to stay there until 4 a.m. and promised to release Carol unharmed if they didn't call the police. Then, pushing Carol in front of him, he left the hotel room after spending about 30 to 45 minutes there. As soon as the man left, Christopher bravely climbed over the wall between the balconies, expertly navigating the 70 feet drop. He alerted the people in the next room, and they immediately called the police. Even though the detectives reached the hotel within a matter of minutes, the kidnapper already had a 20-minute head start. They immediately began their search, but the lack of witnesses or any information about the vehicle used made it difficult. As hours turned into morning with no sign of Carol, the reality of the situation set in. Pam, burdened with the heartbreaking task, called Carol's parents at 7 a.m. on March 23rd to share the terrible news. Carol's father was overcome with worry. He tried to remain hopeful, knowing Carol was strong and sensible. But as daylight broke without any word from or about her, her parents and friends clung to the kidnapper's promise, desperately praying for her safe return. Investigators individually interviewed Carol's friends about the incident. They initially thought it might be a drug deal gone wrong, but that theory didn't hold up. They found the friends' statements about the incident to be credible. That's when they heard from Jacksonville police about the tragic discovery of a young woman's body that had been found in a ditch near Jacksonville Airport. Once the body was identified as that of Carol Ann Barrett, both Jacksonville and Daytona Beach Shores police departments joined forces to hunt down her killer. They launched a full-scale investigation and worked tirelessly to gather evidence. But who was Carol Ann Barrett? And how did she end up a victim in this tragic crime? Carol Ann Barrett was born on the 11th of October 1961 in Zanesville, a close-knit Ohio town known for its strong family values. She grew up with 3 brothers and 2 sisters and had a lively childhood filled with love and support. Her parents, Wayne and Patricia Barrett, were loving and involved, always there for their children and creating a safe and happy home. Even as a young girl, Carol was known for her strength and boldness. She had a calm nature and an ability to handle difficult situations with grace. Her father described her as a spirited tomboy who loved to wrestle with her brothers and always had a mind of her own. By 18, Carol had many interests and a clear vision for her future. She loved being in her high school band, which allowed her to travel and perform. A special band trip to Colorado sparked her passion for exploring new places. This led her to plan a spring break adventure to Daytona Beach shores. Carol's dad, Wayne, was hesitant about the trip at first, but he eventually agreed, knowing how much it meant to her. Carol had been saving up for almost a year, working part-time at Wendy's. She had also been curating the perfect wardrobe, embracing the latest fashion trends of 1975. She had purchased a pair of stylish bell-bottoms, a few colorful halter tops, and some platform sandals to complete the look. As spring break got closer, her excitement grew. She daydreamed about the warm sun, the sand between her toes, and the roar of the waves. She couldn't wait to experience the thrill of riding the roller coasters and trying her luck at the arcades along the Daytona Beach Shores boardwalk. Unfortunately, what began as a joyful adventure quickly transformed into a nightmare when Carol was kidnapped and later found dead. Her dreams of carefree days on the beach and laughter-filled nights with friends were brutally cut short, leaving an unimaginable void in the hearts of all who loved her. For Carol's parents, Wayne and Patricia, the news of her death was heartbreaking, destroying their hopes of her safe return. Her friends, who had shared in her excitement for the trip, were filled with grief and disbelief. The once bright dreams of Daytona Beach shores were now overshadowed by a deep sense of loss. When Carol's body was found, there were no visible injuries except for some dried blood on her face. However, an autopsy revealed she had been shot once in the back of the head with a small .22 caliber gun, killing her instantly. There were no signs she had tried to fight back. This suggested that Carol was likely caught off guard and shot execution style, probably without warning. The autopsy also showed that she had been intimate with someone before she was killed, but it couldn't be determined exactly when. With few leads to go on, detectives turned to the descriptions provided by Carol's friends to create a composite sketch of the suspect. He was described as a neatly dressed man in his 20s, wearing a brown corduroy jacket and tan slacks. He had medium-length reddish-brown hair, parted in the middle, and a short beard. A distinctive mole marked his left cheek, level with the nostrils of his long, thin nose. He was estimated to be about 5 feet 10 inches tall and 160 pounds, and wore gold wire-rimmed glasses. This sketch was shared with police nationwide, given to toll booth operators on major East Coast highways, and published in local newspapers and on TV. Detectives examined every detail, from the forensic evidence found at the crime scene to interviews with potential witnesses. They even examined traffic camera footage and questioned known criminals in the area. They also looked into similar crimes in nearby states, hoping to find a connection that could lead them to the killer. Despite the widespread circulation of the suspect's sketch, weeks turned into months with no real progress in the case. Years went by, and although heartbroken, Carol's family continued to work with law enforcement, pushing them to keep the investigation active and the public informed. Every year on the anniversary of Carol's disappearance, local newspapers would run stories about the unsolved crime, hoping to trigger someone's memory or conscience. But eventually, the case grew cold, leaving Carol's family with no answers. It wasn't until August 2017 that Carol's case was revived by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit. Carefully combing through the case files and re-examining all the evidence, investigators discovered numerous fingerprints collected from the crime scene. While most belonged to Carol and her 8 friends, one unresolved partial palm print stood out, becoming the focus of their efforts. This crucial piece of evidence eventually led to a significant breakthrough in the investigation a few years later in 2020, when 65-year-old Billy Mansfield Jr. was identified as a suspect. At the time of Carol's tragic murder, Mansfield would have been 24 years old. In 2022, after 2 years of extensive interviews, Mansfield admitted to being the man depicted in the police sketch from the night of the abduction. He subsequently confessed to both kidnapping Carol from the Daytona Beach Shores Hotel and tragically ending her life shortly after. Although Mansfield confessed to Carol Barrett's murder, authorities decided not to pursue additional charges, since he's already serving a life sentence in California and 4 consecutive life sentences in Florida for murder in separate cases. On January 25, 2024, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office officially announced on their Twitter handle that the 44-year-old case had been closed. However, the question that lingers is a chilling one. Why did Billy Mansfield commit such a horrific crime? William Mansfield Jr. was born in 1956 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He was the eldest in a family of 5 children. His father, William Mansfield Sr., was a convicted child molester who had served sentences in both Michigan and Nevada. He frequently provoked conflicts amongst his sons, creating a chaotic and aggressive atmosphere at home. Despite the turbulent home life, Mansfield Jr. had a good upbringing and maintained a healthy relationship with his family. However, this changed dramatically when he turned 14. He dropped out of school and forged his birth certificate to enlist in the Army. However, he was discharged 14 months later when his lie was discovered. During his time in the Army, Mansfield Jr. became an alcoholic. Soon after, he also began experimenting with various drugs, further complicating his struggles. His addiction eventually led to him seeking treatment at a Veterans Administration hospital in Tampa, where he was admitted in both 1978 and 1980. By the time Billy turned 18, he had already been accused or arrested for at least 5 crimes against females aged 14 to 20, as well as charges for petty larceny, assault, and battery. In 1977, Mansfield Jr. pleaded guilty to a misconduct charge. This resulted in a 6-month prison sentence in Michigan. However, he managed to shorten his time in jail by testifying against his cellmate. Unfortunately, his freedom was short-lived. He found himself back in prison not long after for assaulting 2 teenagers and violating the terms of his parole. In 1980, Mansfield met 29-year-old Renee Salling at Wooden Nickel 2 Bar in Watsonville, California. He and strangled the mother of 3 and left her body in a drainage ditch near Santa Cruz County dump. While Salling's death was being investigated in California, authorities in Hernando County found the bodies of 4 people at Mansfield's parents' home in Spring Hill. The bodies were in various stages of decomposition. The first victim was identified as 15-year-old Elaine Ziegler. Elaine was from Warren, Ohio, and had tragically disappeared from a KOA campground near Brooksville on New Year's Eve in 1975. The second one was 21-year-old Sandra Jean Graham, a Tampa native who worked at Hillsborough Community College. Sandra was last seen leaving a bar on April 27, 1980. The third body was identified as that of 16-year-old Teresa Caroline Fillingim, who vanished from Tampa on May 16, 1980. Sadly, the identity of the fourth victim still remains unknown. These horrifying discoveries intensified the investigation into Mansfield's activities. As authorities pieced together the disturbing details, it became clear they were likely dealing with a serial killer. Their focus expanded to include unsolved cases in the areas where Mansfield had lived and traveled. One of those cases, chillingly similar in nature, was the unsolved murder of Carol Ann Barrett in Florida. The resolution of the 44-year-old cold case of Carol Ann Barrett brought mixed emotions to those involved. While the arrest brought some relief, it also reopened old wounds and reminded everyone of the tragic loss of Carol. Advances in forensic technology and new leads played a crucial role in solving this long-standing mystery. Talking to the media about the case, Claire Gilligan, Carol's niece, was grateful to finally have answers.
She was an amazing soul. She loved hard, fell hard, fought hard, stood up for what she believed in. And I believe just her actions and what happened showed, the kind of person that she was.
I can remember her, giving me baths and, using remember those little oil bath beads? Always use those.
Don't think there are really questions that'll be answered, especially because of who he is or, what he's done. I don't know if it really matters at this point. He took a life, or many lives.
The thought that he did it to that many other women, does change the fact that it makes him a little more of a monster in my mind.
Unfortunately, Carol's parents passed away never knowing if their daughter's case would be solved. But for other family members, this news offers a sense of resolution. While it may not bring complete closure, it does provide some answers and allows them to finally close this painful chapter in their lives. What do you think about today's case? Do you believe justice was served, or is there more to the story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more deep dives into true crime cases, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. And if you found this case as fascinating as we did, give this video a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.